Whether you're a new player trying out Apex for the first time or perhaps a veteran playing since Season 1, today I'll be going over my updated settings which has been highly requested. This will give you a strong foundation in which you can adjust to your preference, so be sure to stick around. When it comes to settings in Apex Legends, some players say to use advanced look controls, others swear by default, but what should you use? Well, for the most part it comes down to preference. There are tons of extremely good players that use both ALC and default. So since both are a solid option, I have made my own advanced look controls based on my default sensitivity. Now, without wasting too much time, let's get into the settings. As per usual with my settings videos, I go over only the most crucial settings that will have the most impact on your gameplay. So if you want to copy everything to a T, just pause the video for yourself. Starting with the gameplay tab, the first setting we're going to take a look at is the crosshair damage feedback. This is turned off for me. If on, will create a crosshair indicator when dealing damage. I used to have this on X, but I have switched it to off to help minimize screen clutter when firing at someone, which will give you a more clear shot. Now, even when off, your damage numbers and shield indicator will stay active, so you will still know if your shots are connecting to an enemy. The next important setting to take a look at is the damage numbers. I have mine set on stacking ever since I can remember. This will help total out your damage dealt in one number, which not only helps limit screen clutter, but also helps with callouts. Since Apex is a game of damage exchanging and knowing when to push, having your damage calculated into one number will make it easier to let your teammates know how weak the enemies are. Moving on to the next setting, which is going to be weapon auto cycle and empty. This is turned off for me. However, when turned on, will automatically swap to your secondary weapon when your entire weapon ammo is depleted. Now, if you're used to manually swapping your weapons, keep this turned off since it can mess you up in a hectic situation. Being in control of your weapon choice is very important, and most players know when they are low on ammo and have to switch over. Next, let's move on to auto sprint. Although this is a highly debated setting, most players that use auto sprint specifically use it to spin their heirlooms faster when running. Personally, I have my auto sprint off just because it gives me more control of when I want to run and when I want to walk. If auto sprint is on, you can still walk and run based on the amount of pressure you put on the analog stick, which can sometimes be very picky. I like pressing my analog stick in when I want to run. That way I don't have to worry about running on accident. The next setting I want to cover, although it's made specifically for Valkyrie, is the jetpack control. I have mine set to hold, which makes for a smoother flying experience, especially if you have paddles on your controller or playing on a different button layout. If you want more details on this, check out my how to play Valkyrie guide. Now let's move on to the next setting, which is taking damage closes death box or crafting menu. This should always be off. When you're in a tough situation and need to shield swap a fresh armor from a death box, keeping this setting off won't force you out of the death box when being shot at, essentially helping you secure an armor swap. Alright guys, let's move on to the controller tab. The first setting I'm going to go over is the crouch button. I have mine set to toggle mainly since it's what I've been used to ever since playing my first FPS in 2008. Although if you want to take a dive into deep waters by trying out hold, your crouch bands will be much faster since hold crouch will instantly stand you up when releasing the crouch button. But I personally just don't enjoy holding crouch when behind cover, that's why I keep mine on toggle. The next setting I want to note is the survival slot button. I keep mine off only because then I can inspect items and or weapons. You can still use heat shields and mobile beacons by going directly in your inventory, but if you don't care about weapon inspects, then turn on the survival slot. This binds your inspect button towards instantly using a heat shield or beacon instead of manually going into your inventory. Now moving on to the trigger dead zones. For this, you want it to be none, giving you zero delay when pressing either of the triggers. You want to be aiming and shooting as fast as possible with as little button delay as possible. Next setting worth touching on is the menu cursor speed. I've mine set to 1 tick past the first trigger dead zone notch. This can be a good foundation if you haven't changed yours yet. When adjusting it to your preference, go to the firing range, drop, use, and swap attachments. If you notice you may be over-scrolling items, then look to turn down your speed by 2 ticks. But if you find yourself waiting to get to the item, look to turn up your speed by 2 ticks. You may not find your sweet spot right away, so pay attention to this when you're playing and adjust accordingly. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for some more awesome content. I also want you guys right now to comment down below on what you prefer, default or ALC controls. Alright beautiful people, it is time to get into the sweet spot of this video, my sensitivity. For default, I play on 5 look and 4 ADS sense, and my per optic are 4 for 1 to 2 times and 5 for 3 times plus. I've been using this sensitivity for about 3 seasons now, but since many people have been converting to ALC, I wanted to see what the hype was about. So I based my advanced look controls to closely match my original 5.4 settings. Before I get to the ALC though, my default response curve is classic and both movement dead zones are set to small. But if you notice you may have stick drift when using small dead zones, look to increase the dead zone on the specific stick drift side, whether it's the aiming or movement analog stick. Now let's move on to what most of you guys have been waiting for, the advanced look controls. Dead zone 5%, outer threshold 2%, response curve 10, yaw speed 300, pitch speed 180, turning extra yaw 250, turning extra pitch 80, turning ramp up time 0%, turning ramp up delay 0%, ADS yaw speed 100, ADS pitch speed 65, ADS turning extra yaw 30, ADS turning extra pitch 30, ADS turning ramp up time 0%, ADS turning ramp up delay 0%, target compensation on, which is referring to your aim assist, so make sure that's on, melee target compensation again on, target compensation style on default, which is referring to the amount of aim assist that you get. So if you're playing on console, make sure this is on default, you get 0.6 aim assist, PC option gives you 0.4 aim assist. And lastly, my per optic ADS sensitivity on, and goes as follows. 1 and 2 times is a 1.7, 3 times and higher is a 1.8. But that will wrap up the advanced look controls, and I will say it does take some time to get used to and may feel a bit weird at first. So this is something you're probably going to need to grind out for a week or so. And I also want to give a quick shout out to J Tolerance, since I based my ALC foundation from him and I adjusted to my preference. So if you're a player that uses around 5.4 default right now or something similar, I'd recommend trying out these ALCs and see how you do. You can always switch back in the future if you don't enjoy it. Moving on to the video tab, let's look at FOV. Mine is set to 104, and I'd recommend anywhere from 100 plus if you're playing on a monitor, and 90 plus if you're playing on a TV sitting farther away from your screen. Increasing your FOV will zoom your screen out, creating more vision all around and give you less blind spots. Just be aware of your vision when it comes to long range targets when adjusting, since they might be a little harder to see. Moving on to FOV ability scaling, make sure to keep this on default so it doesn't change your FOV during abilities like Octane Stim and Bloodhound ult. You'll have a more consistent FOV playing throughout the entire game. And finally guys, for sprint view shake, make sure to keep this on minimal since it gives you less view bobbing when running around. This will keep your screen in a more fluid motion. Now for the audio tab, this is mainly personal preference, but I'll leave this on screen for you guys to take a look at anyways. Thank you guys for spending a couple minutes every day with me. If you enjoyed today's video, like rating is always appreciated. Also, don't forget to subscribe for some more quality content because you guys are the reason I'm able to do this in the first place, and I'm extremely grateful for every single one of you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and as always, this was Sultan D. I'm signing off. Peace.
Hey, did you see our teammate?
No. Oh my god.